Hey there, quick video today covering chapter 9 of To Kill a Mockingbird. I am going to be asking you to read chapter 10 on your own. Chapters 10 and 11, we're going to be wrapping up part 1 and moving into kind of the main focus that we're going to be meeting in chapter 9, which is a big case that Atticus is going to be taking on in the future chapters. So we're going to do just a quick little summary of chapter 9 for you, and that way you can read chapter 10 and kind of progress there on your own, and that'll get us to a good spot for these next couple days. So if you just kind of look at the screen here, chapter 9, a couple things that happen here. All right, so like I said, first of all, Scout gets into a fist fight with her classmate Cecil Jacobs because he said that Atticus defends and he uses the N-word, and we're going to start seeing that some different people in the book use that word quite a bit. Right, it does show up a bit more than what we've seen at least early on, and that does sort of it definitely plays a role, because like Scout doesn't really understand this, and she doesn't like it because she's like, I didn't even know what it means, but the way he said it meant that it was an insult and meant that it was a bad thing, because Atticus is he has been given kind of a new case that's going to be pretty challenging, considering they live in Maycomb, Alabama in the 1930s. It's just going to present a lot of obstacles for him and for his kids. So Scout, like she usually does, she goes home and asks Atticus if he defends, again, she says the N-word, if he defends black people. He says yes, but he tells her not to use that word. He says it's common. He says it's sort of like a low word, an ignorant word, and he doesn't like to use that. So he said, we don't speak like that, so you don't repeat that word. Atticus then sort of clarifies a little bit about what it means when he says that he's got a case. He's defending a guy named Tom Robinson, who is a black man, who is going to be on trial. They haven't really told us what yet in the book. We do find that out, but for right now, it's still sort of a mystery. We just know that he's a black guy who Atticus is going to be defending, right? A lot of people in town, a lot of the white people in town think that Atticus shouldn't take the case, or if he takes the case, he should just sort of mail it in and not really try. They think that Tom Robinson doesn't deserve that case. He doesn't deserve that effort, but Atticus thinks that he does. All right, and Atticus thinks that it's his civic duty to do his best to defend Tom Robinson, and so that kind of puts him in a difficult situation with the town, because there's a lot of people who are going to disagree with his approach. Atticus then asks Scout not to get in fights, especially not on his behalf. He doesn't want her to fight at all, but he certainly doesn't want her to fight because of what he's doing. He's like, I don't want to be the cause of all these things, so you have to kind of like hold your head up high. She does her best to follow his request. Cecil Jacobs again sort of confronts her on the schoolyard, and she walks away. He even calls her a coward, but she's like, I don't know how it helps Atticus, but he asked me to do this, and I'll do that for him, right? She respects her dad. She knows that he doesn't ask a lot of her, so the least she can do is not punch Cecil Jacobs in the nose. Atticus's brother Jack comes to visit. He was mentioned once in chapter 1. He's a doctor. He also didn't stay around here, but so he comes to visit, and the kids always look forward to it because he's single, doesn't have kids, and just kind of like gives them presents a lot of times, and so they're always excited about that. They all end up going to spend the day, Christmas Day, at Finch's Landing, which is where Atticus and Jack and their sister Alexandra grew up. So they're going to be spending Christmas with family. While they're there, we meet Scout's second cousin, Francis. This is the only chapter that he's in, and spoiler alert, he sucks. He's just this little annoying, tattletale, whiny, mama's boy sort of character. And then he starts telling Scout that Aunt Alexandra said that Atticus is ruining the family because he's an N-word lover. Again, using that word, all right? And that word has a lot of, connotation behind it. Scout, who had been doing a really good job of listening to Atticus and not getting into fights, when he says this, when Francis says this, she punches him in the face. It's a very satisfying moment as a reader. But as this is happening, then Francis, goes crying off to the adults. And Uncle Jack, when hearing what she did, and then Francis says that she also used some bad language too, Uncle Jack punishes her. And she's really upset about that. But yeah, so that's sort of how Christmas happens. So there's a lot of chaos at Christmas. Later that night, Uncle Jack is staying at their house, and Scout overhears Uncle Jack and Atticus talking about the case. And Atticus says that he is pretty sure the case is going to be hard to win, because all they have to go on right now is the word of Tom Robinson, who is a black man, against the word of the Ewell family, or white people. And in the 1930s in Alabama, that's puts him in a pretty tough spot. So he already kind of goes in knowing that it's going to be a long shot to win this case. But what he's really sort of worried about is that the effect that this case might have on his kids, right? So he makes a point that he hopes that the court case will not make either one of them bitter, kind of like at what other people might say to them or might say about their father, or just the results of the case, stuff like that. He hopes that they don't become, he calls it like the usual diseases of Maycomb, right? Which basically means he hopes that Jem and Scout don't grow up to become kind of inherently racist, like a lot of the people in town are. He hopes that they can sort of avoid that. And that he hopes that Jem and Scout come to him for their answers instead of listening to the town. He hopes that, you know, similar to what Scout did at the beginning of the chapter, when she wasn't sure about what kids were saying about him at school, she went and talked to him. And he hopes that they continue to do that because he wants to be able to like share with them the information from his perspective and sort of be able to control like what they're thinking, not just hearing a lot of hate speech in town, right? So that's kind of what chapter 9 focuses on. It deals with a lot of that stuff, and that's going to be the main focus for part 2 then as well. But we're going to see it sort of show up here in chapter 10, what you're going to be reading for tomorrow. It doesn't show up as much, but we start to see the concept of courage, which I want you to focus on that for the reading. Focus on courage because tomorrow with chapter 11 and with something that we're going to be looking at dealing with like the big ideas of the book, courage is going to be one of those things that we can kind of focus on. So I want you to be looking at that because right now he's, without outwardly saying it, he's trying to teach his kids this lesson about what bravery and courage really is versus what they might think it is and stuff like that. All right. So I hope you're enjoying the book, and I will talk to you again real soon.